Have you ever screamed so loud that no sound came out? That was me, standing on the altar of the Blackwood Pack house, watching the man I had loved since childhood hold another woman's hand. They told me it was politics. They told me I wasn't strong enough to be Luna. They stripped me of my rank, my home, and my dignity in front of 300 people. I thought my life was over. I thought I was destined to die a rogue in the gutter. But I didn't know that the laws of our world were about to change. I didn't know that the most feared man in existence, the Alpha King himself, was watching. And for me, he was about to burn the entire kingdom down. The invitation was printed on thick, cream-colored cardstock with gold leaf lettering. It felt heavy in Isla's hands, heavier than a piece of paper had any right to be. The Blackwood Pack cordially invites you to the Alpha Ascension ceremony of Gavin Reynolds and his chosen mate. It didn't say, fated mate. It said, chosen. Isla stood before the full-length mirror in the guest quarters of the Pack house. She wasn't in the master suite anymore. That room had been locked 3 days ago. Her bags were packed in the corner, 2 worn duffels containing 22 years of life. She smoothed the fabric of her navy blue dress. It was modest, something she had bought at a thrift store in town, because her allowance had been cut off last month. She looked at her reflection. She saw the dark circles under her amber eyes, the slight tremble in her lip. She was a wolf, a predator, but today she felt like a lamb being walked to the slaughter. "Are you ready, Isla?" Isla turned. It was her own father, Beta Thomas. But his eyes didn't hold warmth, they held resignation. He was a man who valued the hierarchy above his own flesh and blood. "Do I have a choice?" Isla asked, her voice raspy. "Gavin is doing what is best for the pack," her father said, adjusting his tie. "The Blackwoods are in debt. We need the alliance with the Northern Stone Pack. Veronica brings resources. She brings money. You know you've always been fragile, Isla. You haven't even shifted fully since you were 16. I am his fated mate, Dad," she whispered. "The moon goddess chose me. The moon goddess doesn't pay the electric bill." He snapped, opening the door. "Let's go. Don't make a scene. For God's sake, just smile." The great hall of Blackwood Manor was suffocating. The scent of expensive perfume, roasted meat, and nervous sweat hung in the air. 300 pack members turned to watch as Isla walked in. She felt their stares like physical blows. They used to look at her with kindness. She was the sweet girl who helped in the infirmary, the one who tutored the pups. Now they looked at her with pity, or worse, disdain. At the front of the room, standing on the raised dais, was Gavin. He looked magnificent, tall, broad-shouldered, with hair the color of sand and eyes like polished steel. He was the love of her life. He was the boy who had kissed her skinned knees when they were 7. And standing next to him, draped in red silk that cost more than Isla's entire existence, was Veronica Stone. Veronica was stunning in a sharp, dangerous way. She had the posture of a queen and the smile of a shark. Isla took her designated seat in the 3rd row. Not the front row, the 3rd, behind the elders. Elder Marcus, a man with skin like parchment and a heart of stone, stepped up to the microphone. "Brothers and sisters of Blackwood," Marcus boomed. "Tonight we secure our future. Tonight Alpha Gavin takes his Luna, not by the whims of fate, but by the strength of logic." A murmur of agreement went through the crowd. Gavin stepped forward. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked straight at Isla. For a second, just a split second, she saw regret in his eyes. Then the mask slammed down. "I, Alpha Gavin Reynolds," he began, his voice echoing off the high beams, "hereby reject the bond with Isla Vance." The air left the room. Even though everyone knew it was coming, hearing the words spoken aloud, was of violence. Isla felt a tearing sensation in her chest like a physical rib snapping. She clutched her stomach, biting her tongue so hard she tasted copper. "I accept the rejection," she had to say. It was the law. If she didn't, she could be hunted. She stood up. Her legs were shaking so badly her knees knocked together. I accept," she choked out. "And," Gavin continued, turning to Veronica, taking her hand, "I claim Veronica Stone as my chosen Luna. Long may she reign." "Long may she reign," the pack chanted. Veronica smiled, lifting her chin. She scanned the crowd and locked eyes with Isla. It wasn't a smile of victory, it was a smirk of dismissal. She leaned into the microphone. "Thank you, Alpha," Veronica purred. "As my first act as Luna, I would like to address the security of our pack. We cannot have loose ends. Those who do not contribute to the strength of Blackwood are a liability." Isla's blood ran cold. "Isla Vance," Veronica said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Since you are no longer the Alpha's mate, and since you have no specific trade skills that benefit our new direction, you are hereby banished." The room gasped. Rejection was one thing. Banishment was a death sentence. "Gavin," Isla screamed, looking at him. "Gavin, please, my family is here. I have nowhere to go." Gavin looked away. He clenched his jaw, staring at the floor. He wasn't going to save her. He was a coward, wrapped in an Alpha's title. "You have 1 hour to clear the territory," Veronica said, checking her diamond watch. "If you are found on Blackwood land after midnight, the sentries have orders to kill on sight." Isla looked at her father. Beta Thomas stared straight ahead, refusing to meet her eyes. She was alone. Isla turned and ran. She didn't grab her coat. She didn't say goodbye. She pushed through the heavy oak doors and burst out into the night. It was raining a cold November sleet that stung her skin. She scrambled into her rusted 2005 Ford Ranger, the key fumbling in her trembling hand. As the engine sputtered to life, she looked back at the manor one last time. The warm glow of the chandeliers spilled out of the windows, filled with laughter and applause. They were celebrating her destruction. "I hate you," she sobbed, hitting the steering wheel. "I hate you all." She threw the truck into gear and peeled out of the gravel driveway tires, spinning, heading toward the boundary line. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she had to run. 2 years later, the neon sign of Jerry's 24-hour diner buzzed with an annoying electrical hum. The N in diner flickered on and off, casting a rhythmic red shadow across the wet asphalt of the parking lot. Isla wiped down the counter with a rag that smelled of bleach and old coffee. Her name tag read Jane. She wasn't Isla anymore. Isla died that night in the rain. She looked different now. She had dyed her honey blonde hair a stark chemical black. She wore baggy clothes to hide her figure. She kept her head down, spoke only when spoken to, and paid her rent in cash. She was living in a trailer park 3 towns over a place called Shady Pines, which had neither shade nor pines, just meth addicts and rusty sedans. "Hey, Jane, order up," Isla snapped out of her daze. Cookmaster greasy, Dave slid a plate of eggs and bacon onto the pass. "Table 4, he grunted. Isla grabbed the plate. "Got it." She walked over to table 4. It was occupied by 2 truckers who smelled like diesel and unwashed flannel. "Here you go, boys," she said, keeping her voice flat. "Thanks, sweet cheeks," one of them said, reaching out to grab her wrist. Isla didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She just looked at him with dead, amber eyes. "Touch me again, and you'll be eating those eggs through a straw." The trucker blinked, surprised by the cold menace in the small woman. He let go. Geez, relax. Isla walked back to the counter. Her wolf was restless. For 2 years she had suppressed it. She took wolfsbane suppressants she bought on the black market just to hide her scent. It made her sick, made her joints ache, but it kept the trackers away. If the Blackwood pack or any pack found a rogue living this close to the border, she'd be dead. The diner door chimed. A blast of cold winter air swept in. Isla didn't look up immediately. She was refilling the sugar dispensers, but then the silence hit her. Usually when someone walked in, the ambient noise of the diner, continued forks scraping, plates low chatter, the jukebox playing some country ballad, but the silence now was absolute. Isla looked up. Standing in the doorway were 4 men. They didn't look like truckers. They didn't look like locals. They wore tailored black trench coats. They moved with a fluid, predatory grace that screamed wolf. And in the center of them stood a man who seemed to suck the light out of the room. He was massive, standing well over 6'4". He had hair as black as a raven's wing and eyes that were a shocking, vibrant violet. Violet eyes. Isla's breath hitched. Violet eyes were a myth. They were the mark of the royal bloodline, the Lycan kings. What is the Alpha King doing in a dump like Jerry's Diner on a Tuesday night? The king scanned the room. His gaze was intense, analytical. He looked at the truckers who were now staring at their plates in terror. He looked at Greasy Dave, who was frozen with a spatula in mid-air. Then his eyes landed on Isla. He froze. He took a slow, deep breath, his nostrils flaring. Isla's heart hammered against her ribs. He smells me. Even with the suppressants, even with the bleach and the grease, he smells something. She quickly looked down, scrubbing a spot on the counter that was already clean. Don't look at him. Don't make eye contact. You are Jane. Just Jane. The king walked forward. His footsteps were heavy, deliberate. His boots crunched on the linoleum. He didn't sit at a booth. He walked straight to the counter, right in front of her. Isla could feel the heat radiating off him. It was intoxicating. It smelled like cedarwood ozone and impending rain. "Coffee," he said. His voice was deep, a baritone that vibrated in Isla's chest. Isla kept her eyes on the counter. She reached for the pot with a trembling hand. Cream or sugar? Black. She poured the coffee. Her hand shook and a few drops splashed onto the white saucer. "I'm sorry," she whispered, reaching for a napkin to wipe it. "Leave it," he commanded. She stopped. "Look at me," he said. Isla gripped the edge of the counter. "I'm just a waitress, sir. I have tables to tend to. Look at me." It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command. Isla's body betrayed her. She couldn't resist. She slowly lifted her head, her amber eyes locking with his violet ones. The moment their eyes met, the world tilted. The buzz of the neon sign vanished. The smell of grease faded. There was only him. A golden thread, invisible but unbreakable, seemed to snap into place between them. The king's eyes widened. He leaned over the counter, invading her space. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Jane." She lied. "You are lying," he growled low in his throat. "I can hear your heart beat, little wolf. It's beating like a trapped bird." One of the king's guards stepped forward. "Alpha King Roman, we are running behind schedule. The summit at Blackwood Manor begins in an hour." Blackwood Manor. Isla flinched as if she'd been slapped. They were going to Blackwood. To him. To Gavin and Veronica. The King Roman didn't break eye contact with Isla. He saw the flinch. He saw the terror in her eyes at the mention of the name. "Blackwood," Roman said, testing the word. "You know them." "Everyone knows them," Isla said, quickly pulling back. "They own the county." Roman narrowed his eyes. He reached out his large hand, hovering near her face. Isla flinched back, expecting a blow. Roman paused. A flash of pure, unadulterated rage crossed his face. Not at her, but for her. "You think I would strike you?" he asked softly. I don't know what you'd do." "My king," she whispered, using his title without thinking. "Smart girl," he murmured. He pulled a crisp $100 bill from his coat and placed it on the counter. "Keep the change, Jane." He turned sharply, his trench coat flaring behind him. "Let's go," he barked to his guards. "We have a meeting with Alpha Gavin, and I suddenly find myself in a very bad mood." As the door chimed shut behind them, Isla collapsed against the back counter, gasping for air. He knew. He suspected. And he was going to Blackwood. She should run. She should pack her bags and move to the next state. But as she looked at the $100 bill, she felt a strange pulling sensation in her chest. A pull toward the danger. A pull toward the violet eyes. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't want to run. She wanted to see what happened next. The convoy of black SUVs tore up the winding road to Blackwood Manor. Inside the lead vehicle, the air was tense. Alpha King Roman sat in the back, staring out the rain-streaked window. His wolf, a massive beast named Ares, was pacing in his mind, growling incessantly. Mate Ares rumbled, "Found her." "She was weak," Roman replied mentally. "Broken. Hiding. She is ours," Ares snarled. "Go back. Claim her." Not yet. Roman thought, his eyes narrowing. She was terrified of the name Blackwood. Did you see her eyes? Someone hurt her. And if I find out it was this pack, I will leave no stone standing. The car slowed. The iron gates of Blackwood Manor loomed ahead. Gavin Reynolds stood on the front steps, flanked by Veronica. They were dressed in their finest formal wear. Gavin looked nervous. Veronica looked eager, smoothing her silk dress, checking her reflection in the window glass. "They look like peacocks," Roman's beta Silas muttered from the front seat. "Let's see if they bleed like chickens," Roman said coldly. The SUV stopped. The guards opened the door. Roman stepped out into the drizzle. He didn't use an umbrella. He let the rain hit his face. "Your Majesty." Gavin bowed low. "Welcome to Blackwood. It is the honor of a lifetime to—" "Skip the pleasantries," Roman interrupted, walking past him up the stairs. "I'm not here for a tea party, Reynolds. I'm here to audit your territory. There have been reports of border skirmishes and financial irregularities." Gavin paled. "I assure you, everything is in order." Veronica stepped forward, offering a practiced, seductive smile. "King Roman, I am Luna Veronica. We have prepared the master suite for you." Roman stopped. He looked Veronica up and down with clinical disinterest. "You are the Luna. Yes, Your Majesty." "And how did you acquire this position?" Roman asked, his voice deceptively light. Veronica faltered. I was chosen. For the good of the pack." "Chosen," Roman repeated. He sniffed the air around them. He could smell the bond between them. It was weak, artificial. It smelled of contract and greed, not the deep, earthy scent of a fated mate. And what happened to the previous mate, the one the moon goddess provided? Gavin stiffened. She was unsuitable. A weak wolf. We had to reject her. "Unsuitable," Roman echoed. "Where is she now?" "Gone," Gavin said quickly. "She left the territory years ago, probably dead by now. Rogues don't last long." Roman felt Ares howl in his head. "Dead. She is serving coffee 3 miles down the road, you fool." "Interesting," Roman said. He walked into the foyer, his muddy boots staining the pristine white carpet. "I will need to see your archives. Birth records, banishment orders, financial ledgers. Everything." "Now?" Gavin asked, sweating. "Now." Roman roared the sound, shaking the glass in the windows. "Silas, secure the perimeter. No one leaves this house until I say so." As the guards fanned out, Roman turned back to Gavin. "And Gavin, yes, your majesty. If I find out you lied to me," Roman's eyes flashed violet, "I will strip the alpha aura from your soul myself." The Blackwood Pack archive was a dusty, subterranean room filled with the smell of decaying paper and secrets. For 3 hours, Alpha King Roman had been tearing through filing cabinets with a ferocity that terrified the pack historian, a shivering old man named Elias, who stood in the corner, wringing his hands. Gavin paced outside the open heavy metal door, too cowardly to enter the room where the king was dismantling his administration, piece by piece. Veronica sat on a chair in the hallway, filing her nails, maintaining an air of boredom that was betrayed by the rapid tapping of her foot. Inside, Roman was vibrating with suppressed rage. His wolf auris was near the surface, itching to shift and tear the throat out of the man pacing in the hallway. "Financial records," Roman growled, tossing a leather-bound ledger onto a metal table. "You're bleeding money, Reynolds. This alliance with the Stone Pack barely covered your gambling debts from 3 years ago." Gavin poked his head in, sweating profusely. "Your Majesty, it was a temporary setback. The economy." Silence. Roman didn't even look up. He was holding a different file now, a thin manila folder labeled Banishments, Rejections, Year 2021. He flipped it open. There was only one entry for that year. Name, Isla Vance. Rank Beta, female former. Reason for banishment, failure to thrive. Inability to complete full shift by age 22. Weak genetic disposition, deemed detrimental to pack lineage. Rejection by Alpha Gavin Reynolds, validated by Council of Elders. Failure to thrive. Roman read the words aloud. They tasted like ash in his mouth. He turned the page. Stapled to the back was a photograph. It was a high school graduation picture taken just months before the rejection. The girl in the photo was radiant. She had honey blonde hair that caught the sunlight and amber eyes that crinkled with genuine joy. She was smiling, clutching a diploma, standing next to a younger Gavin, who looked adoringly at her. Roman ran a thumb over the picture. He compared this vibrant creature to the hollow shell of a woman he had met in the diner, the woman with dyed black hair, wearing clothes too big for her starving frame, terrified of her own shadow. They broke her. Ares snarled in his head. They took a diamond and crushed it into dust just because they didn't know how to polish it. Roman slammed the file shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the small room. He walked out into the hallway, holding the file like a weapon. Gavin jumped back, nearly tripping over his own feet. "This," Roman held up the file, his voice deadly calm, "is the record of Isla Vance." Gavin swallowed hard. "Yes. Like I said, Your Majesty, a sad case. But necessary. She couldn't shift. An alpha needs a strong Luna who can run with him, who can bear strong pups. Veronica. Veronica is a political transaction." Roman cut him off, his eyes glowing with a faint violet light. "Isla was your fated mate. Do you know the penalty for rejecting a fated mate without just cause under the old laws?" "The laws have modernized," Veronica interjected, standing up and smoothing her dress. She walked over to Gavin, placing a possessive hand on his arm. "King Roman, surely a man of your stature, understands that fate is a romantic notion, but power is reality. Isla was a liability. She was pathetic, really, always crying over injured birds, too afraid to even spar in training. She would have gotten Gavin killed." Roman slowly turned his head to look at Veronica. It was the look a lion gives a yapping jackal just before it snaps its neck. "Pathetic," Roman whispered. He took 2 slow steps toward Veronica. The sheer pressure of his aura hit her like a physical weight. She gasped, stumbling back against the wall. The air in the hallway became heavy, thick with ozone and impending violence. "You speak of strength, little Luna." Roman's voice dropped an octave, vibrating through the floorboards. "Yet you cling to this weak alpha like a parasite. You engineered the destruction of an innocent woman for your own gain." He leaned in close to her face. She was trembling so hard her teeth chattered. "A true queen does not tear others down to build her throne," Roman hissed. "Listen to me closely, Veronica Stone. If you ever speak that woman's name with disrespect again, I will rip your tongue from your head." Veronica whimpered, tears of terror streaming down her perfectly made-up face. She nodded frantically. Roman stepped back, disgusted. He turned to Silas, his beta, who had just arrived from securing the perimeter. "Silas, you are in command of Blackwood Manor," Roman ordered. "Yes, my king. Where are you going?" Roman looked at the file in his hand, at the name Isla Vance. "I have unfinished business at a diner," Roman said, his voice softening just a fraction. "Nobody leaves this house, Silas, especially not these two. If they try to cross the threshold, cripple them." Gavin looked horrified. "Cripple us, your majesty. This is highly irregular. You cannot just—" "I am the king!" Roman roared, his control finally snapping. The lights in the hallway flickered and died, plunging them into near darkness, lit only by the terrified golden eyes of Gavin and Veronica, and the furious glowing violet eyes of the apex predator. "I am the law, and my judgment has just begun." He turned on his heel and strode toward the exit, the darkness seemingly parting around him. He was going back to the roadside hellhole to retrieve the treasure these fools had thrown away. It was 2:15 a.m. Jerry's diner was dead quiet. Isla was wiping down the pie display case for the third time, her nerves frayed. Ever since the violet-eyed man had left 5 hours ago, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. The $100 bill burned a hole in her apron pocket. She should have left. She should have packed her single bag at the trailer and started driving until the gas ran out. But she couldn't. It was as if an invisible anchor had been dropped in the center of the diner, tethering her there. Her wolf, usually dormant and drugged into submission, was scratching at the back of her mind, whimpering with a mix of fear and desperate longing. "He's coming back," her wolf whispered. "Shut up," Isla thought back fiercely. "Nobody comes back for us." The door chimed. It wasn't the gentle tinkle it usually made. It was a violent sound, as if the door had been shoved open with force. Isla whipped around. King Roman stood there. He was alone this time. No guards. He didn't need them. His presence filled the entire space, pressing against the windows, making the air thin. He was soaking wet. It had started raining heavily outside, and his black hair was plastered to his forehead, his trench coat dripping onto the mat. His violet eyes locked onto her instantly. They weren't analytical this time. They were burning. "Greasy Dave," Roman called out without looking away from Isla. His voice boomed through the empty diner. The cook poked his head out of the kitchen portal, looking terrified. "Get out," Roman commanded. Dave didn't argue. He didn't even grab his coat. He bolted out the back kitchen door tires, screeching seconds later as he fled the parking lot. They were alone. Isla backed up against the pie case, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. What do you want? I told you the diner is closed." Roman began to walk toward her. He moved with a slow, deliberate, predatory grace. He stalked her. He stopped on the other side of the counter, placing his large hands on the formica top. He leaned in, inhaling deeply. "The wolfsbane is wearing off," he murmured. "I can smell you now underneath the bleach. Honey, freesia, and fear." Oidla gripped her cleaning rag like a lifeline. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please just leave me alone. Stop lying to me." His voice was a low growl that vibrated through the counter into her hands. I saw the file, Isla. The use of her real name hit her like a physical blow. Her knees buckled, and she had to grab the counter to keep from falling. The facade was shattered. Jane the waitress evaporated, leaving behind the terrified, banished girl. "How?" she whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "How did you know, Statua?" The Bond knew. Roman said. He walked around the counter. Isla tried to scramble backward, but she was trapped between the pie case and the soda machine. He cornered her. He didn't touch her, but he stood so close she could feel the heat radiating from his massive body. He towered over her, blocking out the light, blocking out everything but him. "Why are you hiding here, living like a human?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. It wasn't anger anymore. It was pain. "Look at you. You're starving." "I'm surviving," she choked out, lifting her chin defiantly, though her lip trembled. "It's what rogues do." "You are not a rogue." Roman snarled, the violet light in his eyes flaring. "You are of the Blackwood bloodline. You are a high-born wolf." "I am nothing," Isla cried, the 2 years of suppressed agony bursting out. "I am a reject. I couldn't shift. I was too weak for them. I am too weak for anyone." She pushed at his chest, a pathetic attempt to move him. It was like pushing a mountain. "Is that what they told you?" Roman grabbed her wrists. His grip was firm, iron-like, but not painful. He held her fast, forcing her to look at him. "That you were weak because you didn't turn on their schedule." "It's the truth," she sobbed, trying to wrench her wrists free. "Gavin needed a real Luna. Veronica is strong. She shifted at 16. I'm 24, and I'm broken." Roman's expression shifted from intensity to profound sorrow. He let go of one of her wrists and raised a large hand to her face. She flinched violently, squeezing her eyes shut, expecting a blow. He paused, his hand hovering inches from her cheek. A low rumble of fury rose in his chest, not at her or never at her. "Did he hit you?" Roman whispered terribly. "Did Gavin strike you?" Isla shook her head, quickly, eyes still closed. "No, not physically. He let everyone else do it with their words. He let them throw me away." Roman gently, ever so gently, cupped her jaw. His thumb traced her cheekbone, wiping away a tear that had escaped. The skin-to-skin contact sent a jolt of electricity through Isla's body, so intense her knees gave out completely. Roman caught her. He wrapped his massive arms around her waist, pulling her flush against his hard chest, holding her up. The scent of him, cedarwood rain, and raw, untamed power overwhelmed her. It was the scent of safety, a scent she hadn't realized she was starving for. "Listen to me, Isla Vance," Roman commanded, his mouth right at her ear, his voice roughened by the intensity of the mate bond snapping into place. "You did not shift because your body knew it was not safe to do so. You were surrounded by vipers. Your wolf was protecting you by staying hidden." He pulled back slightly to look into her amber eyes. "You are not weak," he vowed, his violet gaze burning into her soul. "I can feel the latent power inside you. It is dormant, waiting for a safe harbor, waiting for a true alpha. But Gavin is a fool who threw away a diamond because he wanted a shiny piece of glass," Roman growled. "You are my fated mate. The moon goddess made you for me and me for you. Do you understand?" Itzla stared at him, her world tilting on its axis. "The Alpha King, her mate. It was impossible. It was a fairy tale, and her life was a tragedy." You can't want me," she whispered, her voice raw. "Look at me. I'm a mess." Roman didn't answer with words. He leaned down and crushed his mouth to hers. It wasn't a gentle, tentative kiss. It was a claim. It was searing, hot, and possessive. He kissed her with 2 years of pent-up frustration, with the desperation of a man who had finally found the missing piece of his soul. Isla froze for a second, overwhelmed by the sheer force of him. But then her wolf, sensing its true mate, roared to life. The drug in her system burned away in the heat of his touch. She grabbed the lapels of his trench coat and kissed him back, pouring all her pain and loneliness into it. When he pulled back, they were both breathless. Isla's lips were swollen, her eyes wide and dazed. Roman looked down at her with fierce possessiveness. "You are done here. You are done serving coffee to truckers. You are done living in fear." He stooped and scooped her up into his arms as easily as if she weighed nothing. She instinctively wrapped her legs around his waist and her arms around his neck, burying her face in the crook of his shoulder. He carried her out of the kitchen, past the counter, where she had wasted 2 years of her life. "Where are we going?" she mumbled into his coat, exhausted and terrified, yet feeling safer than she had in her entire life. Roman kicked the diner door open, stepping out into the pouring rain. He didn't seem to notice the cold. "We are going back to Blackwood Manor," Roman said darkly, his eyes glowing violet in the night. "We are going to burn their world to the ground, my queen, and then we are going home." The drive back to Blackwood Manor was executed in silence, but it was a silence heavy with anticipation. Roman had wrapped Isla in a thick woolen blanket found in the trunk of the SUV, but she was still shivering, not from cold, but from adrenaline. As the iron gates of the manor came into view, Isla's breath hitched. Panic, sharp and familiar, clawed at her throat. This was the place where she had died. This was the place where 300 people had watched her shatter. "I can't," she whispered, her hands gripping the leather seat. "Roman, I can't go in there. They'll destroy me again." Roman reached across the console, covering her trembling hand with his large, warm one. "Look at me." She turned, meeting those impossible violet eyes. "You are not walking in there as Isla the Reject," he said fiercely. "You are walking in there as the chosen mate of the Alpha King. You are walking in there as a queen. If anyone looks at you with anything less than reverence, I will remove their eyes." He squeezed her hand. "Borrow my strength until you find your own. It is there, Isla. I can feel it humming under your skin." The SUV crunched to a halt at the base of the stairs. The rain had stopped, leaving the night air crisp and smelling of wet earth. Silas the King's beta opened the door. "They are all in the great hall, my king, waiting for your audit results." "Good," Roman growled. He stepped out, then turned and offered his hand to Isla. She took it. As she stepped out of the car, she straightened her spine. She was wearing her stained diner uniform, her shoes were worn sneakers, and her hair was a mess of cheap black dye. But holding the hand of the most powerful being on earth, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in years. Anger. They walked up the stairs. The guards threw open the heavy oak doors. The great hall was exactly as she remembered it. High vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, the smell of expensive wine and hypocrisy. The entire pack leadership was there, along with delegations from neighboring territories. Gavin sat on the Alpha throne with Veronica, perched smugly beside him. When Roman walked in, the room went silent. When they saw who he was holding hands with, the silence turned into a vacuum of shock. "Is that?" someone whispered. "The reject." Isla Gavin stood up so fast his chair screeched against the floor, his face drained of color. He looked from Roman to Isla, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Isla!" he croaked. Veronica stood up slowly, her eyes narrowing into slits. She didn't look afraid. She looked furious. She smoothed her red silk dress and descended the dais, walking toward them with a predator's gait. Well, well, Veronica sneered, stopping a few feet away. I didn't know the king had a taste for charity cases. Did you pick her up off the side of the road, Your Majesty? She smells like grease and failure. The room gasped at the insult. Roman didn't speak. He just looked at Veronica. The air pressure in the room dropped. Wine glasses on the tables began to vibrate. Careful, Veronica, Gavin hissed, hurrying down to stand beside his mate. Your Majesty, we are confused. Why have you brought this banished woman back to our sacred hall? This banished woman, Roman's voice was a low rumble that shook the floorboards, is my mate. Chaos erupted. Gasps, cries of shock and murmurs filled the hall. Impossible! Veronica shrieked, losing her composure. She's a dud. She can't shift. She has no wolf. A king cannot mate with a defect. She is not a defect, Roman roared. The sound was so powerful it blew out 2 of the chandeliers, showering the back of the room in sparks and glass. The room plunged into terrified silence. Roman stepped forward, pulling Isla with him. He looked at Gavin with pure contempt. She did not shift because her wolf refused to emerge for a weak alpha. Her wolf knew she was destined for something greater, something royal. Gavin looked at Isla, really looked at her. Beneath the bad dye job and the exhaustion, he saw the girl he had loved. And he saw the mark of the king on her, the way the air bent around her, because she was connected to Roman. Isla, Gavin whispered, stepping forward, his hand outstretched. Is that true? Don't touch her, Roman warned, his violet eyes flaring. She was my mate first. Gavin shouted, a sudden irrational jealousy taking over. I rejected her because I had to. For the pack. But if she has a wolf, if she is worthy of a king, then the rejection was a mistake. A mistake you cannot undo. Isla spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. She let go of Roman's hand and took a step toward Gavin. You chose money, she said, her voice gaining strength. You chose status. You chose her. She pointed at Veronica. You didn't care if I lived or died. You sent me out into a storm with nothing. I thought you would go to your aunt's, Gavin stammered. I have no Aunt Gavin. Isla screamed, the pain finally breaking loose. I slept in my car, I ate out of dumpsters, while you sat on this throne and drank wine. You little lying wretch. Veronica lunged. It happened in slow motion. Veronica fueled by jealousy, and rage shifted mid-leap. Her bones cracked and reshaped fur sprouting until a large grey wolf landed where the woman had stood. With a snarl, the grey wolf launched itself at Isla's throat. No! Roman roared, reaching out, but he was too far away. Isla saw the jaws coming. She saw the death in Veronica's eyes. And in that moment of pure mortal terror, something inside Isla snapped. The lock that had held her spirit down for 24 years shattered. She didn't just feel the shift, she exploded into it. A blinding flash of golden light erupted from Isla's body, knocking Roman back and sending the grey wolf flying across the room. The light was so intense, everyone had to cover their eyes. When the spots cleared, the room fell into a silence so profound it felt like a church. Standing where Isla had been was not a normal wolf. She was massive. She was larger than Gavin's wolf. She was nearly as large as the king's. Her fur was not brown or grey or black. It was pure shimmering gold. A golden wolf. A legend. A creature that hadn't been seen in 500 years. The sign of a direct blessing from the moon goddess herself. The golden wolf threw back her massive head and howled. It was a beautiful, terrifying sound that shattered the remaining windows of the great hall. Gavin fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "By the goddess! What have I done?" Veronica's grey wolf scrambled to its feet, whimpering. She looked small, dirty, and insignificant next to the radiating majesty of the golden wolf. Isla turned her massive golden head toward Veronica. She didn't attack. She simply growled a low, resonant sound that vibrated in everyone's chest. "Submit." Veronica, the proud, cruel Luna, whined. She lowered her belly to the floor, exposing her throat. She had no choice. The hierarchy was absolute. Isla looked at Roman. The king was smiling. It was a dark, feral smile of pride. "My queen," he mind-linked her. "Show them." Isla turned her gaze to the pack, the 300 people who had mocked her, scorned her, and cast her out. She looked at her father, Beta Thomas, who was cowering behind a pillar. She took one step towards the throne. Gavin was still on his knees, sobbing. Isla shifted back. The golden light swirled, and she stood there, human again. Her clothes were shredded, but Roman was there in an instant, wrapping his heavy trench coat around her shoulders. She looked down at Gavin. "Get up," she said coldly. Gavin looked up, hope in his eyes. "Isla, please, we can fix this. I can annul the marriage to Veronica. If you are a golden wolf, you are the rightful Luna of Blackwood. We can—" "You misunderstand," Roman interrupted, stepping up beside her, his arm like a steel band around her waist. "She is not the Luna of Blackwood." Roman looked out at the crowd. "She is the High Queen of the Lycan Kingdom." The gravity of the title settled over the room like a shroud. High Queen. It meant she outranked everyone. It meant she outranked Gavin by 1,000 lifetimes. "Now," Roman said, his voice returning to that deadly calm business tone, "we have the matter of the law." He gestured to Silas, who stepped forward with a heavy, ancient-looking book. "The Law of the Lycan Kings, Section 4, Paragraph 1. Roman recited from memory. "Any Olfa who knowingly rejects a fated mate without cause of treason or infidelity, and in doing so endangers the lineage of the species, shall be stripped of rank." Gavin trembled. "But I didn't know she hadn't shifted. It wasn't knowingly." "You knew she was your mate," Roman countered. "You rejected the gift of the goddess because it didn't come in the package you wanted. That is treason against nature." Roman turned to the crowd. "But there is another law, a darker law, one that I am invoking tonight." He looked at Veronica, who had shifted back to human form and was huddled naked on the floor, trying to cover herself with a tablecloth. "Section 8, Roman said, "Any wolf who attempts to kill a royal mate forfeits their life." Veronica screamed. I didn't know she was royal." "Ignorance is not a defense," Roman said, raising his hand. Violet energy began to gather in his palm. "No." Isla grabbed his arm. The room froze. Nobody touched the king when he was executing judgment. Roman looked down at her, the violet fire dimming slightly. "Isla, she tried to kill you. She destroyed your life." "I know," Isla said, her voice steady. She looked at Veronica, a pathetic, sobbing mess on the floor. She looked at Gavin, a broken man who had lost everything. "Killing them is too easy," Isla said. "It ends their suffering." Roman tilted his head, intrigued. "Go on." Isla stepped forward. "Gavin Reynolds, you cared about status more than love. You wanted a strong pack above all else." She looked at the elders. "I hereby strip you of the Alpha title, but I do not banish you." Gavin looked up, confused. "I condemn you to stay," Isla said. "You will remain in Blackwood, but you will be an Omega. You will clean the floors. You will serve the food. You will watch as a new Alpha takes your place, takes your house, and leads the pack you were too weak to keep." Gavin slumped. For a proud man like him, this was a fate worse than death. To serve in the house he once ruled. Isla turned to Veronica. "And you?" Veronica looked up, mascara running down her face. "You wanted to be Luna because of the money," Isla said. "Because of the clothes, the power." Isla looked at her father, Beta Thomas. "Dad." Thomas stepped forward, looking hopeful. "Isla, darling, I knew you had it in you. Quiet," she snapped. "You are stripped of your beta rank. You and Veronica. You deserve each other. You are both banished." "Banished!" Veronica shrieked. "But we have no money. The accounts are frozen." "Exactly," Isla said cold. "You will leave with the clothes on your back. No cars, no jewelry, no contacts. You will see what it is like to survive as a rogue in the winter. You will see what you forced me to do." Isla turned back to Roman. "That is my judgment. Does the king accept?" Roman looked at her with awe. She wasn't just kind. She was just. And she was ruthless when she needed to be. "The king accepts," Roman declared. He snapped his fingers. Guards moved instantly. They grabbed Veronica and Thomas, dragging them screaming toward the doors. They stripped the alpha epaulets from Gavin's shoulders, leaving him sobbing on the dais. "Silas," Roman commanded. "Find the strongest, most honorable warrior in this pack. Make him the acting alpha. We are leaving." "Leaving," Gavin whispered, looking up from the floor. "Isla, you're leaving me." Isla stopped at the door. She looked back at the man who had been her entire world, the man who had broken her heart into dust. "I left you 2 years ago, Gavin," she said softly. "I just finally came back to say goodbye." She turned to Roman, the man who had found her in a diner, the man who had seen a queen when everyone else saw a waitress. "Take me home, Roman," she said. Roman scooped her up into his arms, kissing her forehead. "As you wish, my love." They walked out into the night, leaving the ruins of the Blackwood administration behind them. The rain had stopped completely, and the moon, full and bright, broke through the clouds, shining down on the golden wolf and her king. As they got into the car, Isla rested her head on Roman's shoulder. She wasn't Jane anymore. She wasn't the reject. She was Isla, the Golden Queen. And for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged. Isla's journey from a rejected, broken girl to the Golden Queen of the Lycan Kingdom proves one undeniable truth: your value is not determined by those who cannot see your worth. Gavin saw a weakness where Roman saw a strength waiting to awaken. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to us, the rejection, the firing, the heartbreak, is actually the universe clearing the path for the destiny we truly deserve. Isla didn't just survive, she ascended. And she did it with the one man who was brave enough to break every rule to save her. If you enjoyed Isla and Roman's story of revenge and true love, please give this video a big thumbs up. What would you have done to Gavin and Veronica? Did they get off too easy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We release new dramatic werewolf romance stories every Tuesday and Friday, and you won't want to miss the next one. The triplet alphas rejected her, but their father claimed her. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.